Hey, what's going on? Eric Bach here. Welcome back to the Eric Bach Show. And today we're going to break down 16 gym lessons I've picked up over the last 20 plus years being in the gym that can transform your life. And many people do not see these things coming because the gym itself is it's a force multiplier for everything else in life. The delayed gratification that you learn, pursuing a goal, the ability to stay consistent even when things are moving slowly, the ability to plan, forecast, make adjustments on the fly. These are all skill sets that I've discovered over the years have helped me, obviously in the fitness realm, but also in business, in relationships, in many different areas of life. And so I'll talk about obviously some tried and true training tactics and strategies right here, but I want you to understand the underlying principles because mark my words, if you commit to being in the gym, to following structured programs, to transforming your health and your body first, everything else in life can improve as a result, not just of the confidence or the body that you gain, but the skill sets that you learn, the mindset that you learn, and the ability to stay confident, delay gratification, and push forward. And so the first and most important lesson here is consistency compounds over time. It's not about perfection when you're in the gym. It's not about hype. It's not about doing the latest thing. It's about continuing to show up, especially when it's boring, especially when you do not want it. I can tell you there are many days during the week that I do not want to go in and train, but I'm always glad that I did on the backside. And this ability to stay consistent, even when things get hectic, even if it means pulling back on how intensely we go, on how frequently we train, is a skill set that we can apply to everything else in life. I'll take this business example, right? I've been in business by myself for 13 plus years at this point, right? There are a lot of times when the last thing I feel like doing is getting up a piece of content, right? Researching, spending more time working on refining our coaching and our systems and doing these different things. But again, it's not about doing what we necessarily want to do. It's about the principles that we have. It's about the standards that we set. And so that consistency, even in times when you do not want to be consistent, is something that's absolutely crucial to be able to build. And in the gym, it's a very simple way to build that habit and keep showing up. And that skill set will start to transcend into different areas of your life. Fitness is also a force multiplier, and that is number two. Quite honestly, you could take the wealthiest person in the world, and if they are not in shape, they would probably become a little bit wealthier if they focused a little bit more time on improving their overall health and conditioning. That is quite literally because our health is the only thing that can give us energy, can give us time back. Exercising, being consistent, nailing your diet, these components improve your physiology down to the cellular level. And so if we are getting to become a healthier, stronger version of ourselves, that amount of strength, of power, of physical improvements in terms of performance that we've developed can be applied to just about everywhere else. And so if you're struggling with discipline, if you're struggling with confidence, if you're struggling with focus, your ability to get in the gym, again, even when you don't feel like it, is where you can hone, where you can focus on building those particular things and then level up those areas of your life. It comes down to being consistent and following that plan. Number three, strength is a skill. And this is more tactical when it comes to actually getting stronger in the gym. You see a lot of people, when they go in the gym, they're just focused on knocking out the reps, getting a pump and going on throughout the day. But if you want to get stronger, you have to be able to focus on executing the exercise with ideal form. You have to be able to focus using a squat as an example on getting tight under the bar, taking 1-2 steps back max, pulling the bar down, bending it over your back, bracing your core, pushing your knees out as you descend, breaking at the hip and the knee simultaneously, maintaining that core integrity all the way through with that training tempo, and then explode through the top and then right back into the next rep. You see, there are a lot of little nuances when it comes to building strength, when it comes to building a high performance body, and your ability to focus on those individual things versus going through the motions is going to be what makes a difference between whether you are getting okay results or great results in the gym. A lot of people can train in the gym for years, but they're actually beginners, not because they're effort, but because they are not focused on executing the right things consistently over time, emphasizing progressive overload and going from there. You get a lot of different things, especially on social media these days, where we are focusing on novel exercises that look cool and wanting to change it up and keep things creative. But that's not what you need. That's not what's going to actually transform your body. Because when you develop the skill of getting stronger, you can apply so much tension, so much force, so much, frankly, different emphasis when you're doing a set, when you're doing an exercise, than you can if you're somebody who constantly changes what those exercises are, right? Because if you're somebody, say, who squats 405 pounds with perfect form, well, you can also train higher reps and create a lot more tension. You can focus on different training tempos. You can do mid-rep pauses. You pause in the hole, rebuild stability through your hip, knee, ankle, and core. There are a lot of different things you can do when you build strength as that skill. Even flashing back to my time working with elite level athletes, it's not that we did a bunch of fancy exercises. Many of the programs are still built around basic things like cleans, deadlift variations, squat variations, bench press variations, row variations, and chin-ups. It wasn't chains, a Bosu ball, and whatever the fuck next comes out on social media. It's these basic things. And these are the best athletes in the world, the people who adapt the fastest, right? And so when you get the average person who wants to change things up and wondering why they're not progressing, it's because they are not treating strength like a skill. So focus on keeping consistent with basic exercises. Focus on how well you're executing, not just the weight on the bar. And gradually, over time, you'll develop that skill. Your strength will fly up. And then by extension, the physique benefits are going to come with it as well. Number 4, this one comes from Jay Ferrugia at a event back in 2019. And what he said really stuck with me here. Act your way into thinking differently. Do not wait to feel ready to go into the gym, to take the next step on whatever that step is. You should move first and use those actions to start to reshape your identity. A different way to think about this is ready, fire, aim, course correct, right? In today's world, we have so much information out there that people consistently focus on consuming tips, tricks, strategies, so on and so forth. A lot of times I'll talk to people over on social media and they'll say, I've been researching different diet strategies for the last 6 months. I know what to do. I'm just not doing it. Meanwhile, over that last 6 months, I've gained 10 to 15 pounds instead of just implementing one of the basic things that they could have, right? This is the classic example of information overload. And when people get overwhelmed with information and they deprive themselves of taking action, you're not really accumulating any wisdom in that. You're accumulating, surface level knowledge, but it's not going to be applicable. When we're endlessly consuming information, it quite simply becomes a perverse way of procrastination, right? We are collecting information, conflating that with actually taking action on the goals that we want. And so ultimately it comes down to, if we're consuming information, we need to be acting on that information. We will not have all the answers. We never will. The only way that we find out whether the things that we're doing are working is to stay consistent with it long enough to review our implementation and then course correct based on that. So act your way into thinking differently. Don't try to think that you need the perfect time, the perfect situation, or the perfect information. You simply need to act. Number 5, fitness should enhance your life, not detract from it. Fitness can be a great tool. It can be a great way to relieve stress. It can be a great way to build all of these different skill sets, but it should not be treated endlessly as an escape. Meaning, yes, it can help psychologically with all these different things, but where people run into issues with fitness is when they take an obsessive approach to it and it becomes something that's toxic in their life. It becomes their entire identity. They've got keto CrossFit mom in their Instagram profile, whatever it is. Ultimately, if we want to have a sustainable long-term approach to building the body, having the health that we want, we need fitness to be something that flows with our life, not against it. And that's going to change over time. In my 20s, my approach to fitness was a little bit different than what it is now. Right now, I'm in my mid-30s, got a kid, a bigger business, body, life, stress, all that stuff changes as we get older, right? And so what we need to do is we need to constantly appraise, what are my values? What are the things that are important for me? And where does fitness fit in? Because there are different time periods where different goals in fitness will be more applicable to where you are in that stage of life as well, right? And so we need to think about, how is fitness going to be something that improves my life versus something that consumes it? When we align that reality with the way that we act, then finally we find sustainability. And that's the key. Number 6, the basics win. This is true in fitness, in business, even in things like relationships, right? Alex Hormozy said something along the lines in relation to business of, the best businesses are good at understanding that they are not too smart to do the basic things incredibly well, right? So think of a sales role. If you're in some type of sales, you probably have to shake more hands, make more phone calls. Ultimately, if you focus on that, that's going to clean up a lot of different things within a business, right? Volume can really help. Of course, we need to apply that volume with strategy, but the same thing applies when it comes to fitness. Basic exercises win. I talked about working with pro athletes previously and what that looked like. Basic exercises, right? Fruits, vegetables, lean protein. Again, that's going to win. Reducing alcohol, toxins, improving that lifestyle. It's going to be a win. Walking 10,000 steps a day. It's going to be a win. Sleeping 7 to 8 hours. That's a win. And so that might sound boring. That might sound like, hey, I've tried those things before. But the reality is, those are the things that do work. As much as everybody is unique, nobody's a special snowflake where the basics do not necessarily work. The reality is, what most people need to do is focus on it more consistently. And through that consistent execution of the basics, that's where success lies. All right. Number 7. And this is somewhat similar to number 5 of act your way into thinking differently, but it's taking imperfect action. You need to start messy and adjust later. Let me give you an example. Years ago, when I started doing some of my consulting for gym owners and for personal trainers who are looking to go online, there would be so many coaches who would get bogged down in thinking, what colors should I use on my website? What logo should I have? And getting stuck in these little details. When in reality, they didn't even have an offer to sell yet. They were not even putting content out there yet. And so, in a case like this, these individuals were focusing on the 1% details that are completely irrelevant until you have the foundational things set because they're scared to take action and putting themselves out there. Ultimately, that is true with everything else in life. With fitness, we've got to start messy, adjust later, and improve. I know when I first got started training, I was grabbing the old muscle magazines, like Muscle and Fitness, all of this, Men's Health. I would rip out the workouts and I would have them in a folder. And I would just mix and match all this random shit. And you know what? It was not a great program. But you know what it did do? It taught me how to get in the gym. It had me trying different things. And by extension of that, I felt pretty good about myself. And because I was feeling good, because I was making some progress, because I was a newbie, right? I started consuming better information. And gradually that knowledge base built. And then I got my degree. And then I hired mentors and I kept hiring mentors and getting certifications, meaning I wouldn't be where I am right now if I waited to have all of the information to get started in the gym. I just started, right? So you have to start messy and adjust later. The winners, they're not somebody who waits for someday. They don't wait for things to slow down. They don't wait for life to slow down because I know that life is going to consistently be busy, consistently be messy. Instead, what they do is they take that imperfect action and then they course correct as they go. Tip number 8, use cardio for health, not for fat loss. Ultimately, if you want to be able to transform your body, lift heavy weights, go for walks, let your diet take care of what happens in the body composition side. The idea of chasing calorie burn as the primary driver of fat loss is simply ineffective. I wish I had it in front of me right now. I just saw some research earlier today and was looking at the obesity crisis. And it was looking at industrialized countries, which typically have higher obesity rates than those who are not industrialized, right? And the energy expenditure was actually just about even, if not a little bit higher in terms of daily caloric expenditure for the developed countries. Part of that was due to being larger people, hence being obese. But what this really helps illustrate here is fat loss in particular is 99% a mechanism of your diet. Now, training correctly will help you preserve lean muscle tissue. That will preserve your metabolic rate and give you more sustainability long-term, keep you healthier, keep your hormones in a really good spot. But using cardio as a primary driver for fat loss is not a good method. It's great for health, though. It's great for cardiovascular health. It's great for improving things like insulin sensitivity, and it definitely has its place. But where people run into issues is as soon as fat loss becomes a goal, is they focus on cardio or they focus on speeding up their weight training workouts to burn more calories. And unfortunately, it's not a very effective way to do things. Lift heavy if you want to shape your body. Use cardio to live longer. Focus on your diet and your sleep quality for improving hormone function and body composition. That's where your focus needs to lie for each of those individual goals. Number 9, your training must evolve as you get older. You are not broken, but you're probably not 21 years old either. And so what we have to do is we have to adapt. I can tell you, if I was trying to run back into the same training programs I did at 18, at 21, at 25 right now, I could probably survive for a couple of weeks. And then aches, pains, injuries, all of that stuff would creep up. And the reality is, as we accumulate more volume on our joints, on our tendons, on our ligaments, that wears us down. Even if we're taking care of ourselves, our ability to recover as we get older decreases. Not to mention, there's this unfortunate reality that typically optimal hormone function, optimal recovery and energy starts to decline between 25 and 30, typically right as our careers are taking off, right as we are getting married, having families, all of these things. So we have this unfortunate kind of convergence of increasing demands on our overall body, on our stress, and a decreased resilience to it. And so if we continue training in the same way, it's just going to continue to exacerbate that existing stress where you cannot fully recover from the hard work that you're putting in. And point being is, it's not that you have to start doing water aerobics because you turned 28, because you turned 30, 35, 40, whatever it is, but you do have to take a smarter approach. That might be a different training frequency. It might be taking fewer sets close to failure. It might be decreasing your training volume, which is something that I've done dramatically. A lot of my workouts are about 40, 45 minutes with 2 top-end work sets per exercise at this point, instead of trying to do 3 or 4. And being able to look objectively at how our body's recovering, how we're feeling, not just in areas of training, but things like digestion, sleep, stress, hydration, nutrition. All of these things play a role. We need to have a synergistic approach. And a synergistic approach looks at our training, it looks at our nutrition, and it looks at our lifestyle in relation to recovery, work, everything else that's going on. And so we have to consistently evolve based on the changing circumstances of our life and our adjusting physiology as we get a little bit older. And that leads me to my second component, or my 10th. And that's the idea of synergy. So synergy is one of the key phrases that we use within our coaching program. And what I mean by synergy is having your training, nutrition, sleep, and stress all working together. And that's where results really compound. So let me give you an example here. If you have a training program that uses a ton of high intensity interval training, a lot of heavy lifting and short rest, let's use CrossFit as the example. right? Just for argument's sake. Because we are working typically in elevated with a probably high volume and we have an elevated heart rate consistently, that indicates that glycogen, muscle glycogen, is a primary fuel source for our body. That's carbs, right? Yet, in many cases, you will see people following workout programs like this doing like keto or low carb or carnivore. And so essentially, you're fueling your body with a fuel that is not going to be ideal for the amount of training or the type of training that you're doing. And so what does this do? Well, yes, it compromises your ability to perform. So you're leaving gains on the table, but it also drives up stress. And so when we're driving stress up even further because we're trying to go, carnivore and keto and CrossFit and do 75 hard, and then we work 12 hours a day and have 2 kids and we're stressed out, right? That's going to be a terrible formula for actually making progress. Your sleep is going to be shit. Hormone profile is going to go in the dumps and we run into issues. And so we need to have alignment between those things. And so in a case like that, if you have somebody who's training with high intensity, with high volume, but also has high stress in these different areas, a much better nutritional approach here would be a lower fat, higher carbohydrate, and high protein approach, right? Because that's going to support the type of training that we're doing. We know that carbohydrates can help buffer cortisol, our body's primary stress hormone. It's going to help you sleep better, recover better, and frankly, that's going to bleed over to everything else in your life. And so what I'm getting at here is the way that you eat, the way that you train, the way that the rest of your life looks in terms of sleep and stress all need to correspond. And so when things like sleep and stress, for example, you're sleeping less and you're more stressed out, well, we know that our body's ability to recover in the gym is not necessarily going to be higher. And so even if your natural desire here is to push harder in the gym because you're stressed out, if you do not have the prerequisite recovery for it, you're actually just going to increase that stress and that cortisol down to a chemical level. And that's where burnout comes through. That's where you end up working hard and not seeing results. So we need synergy. We need that balance between the way that you train, the way that you eat, the way that you live across the board. Otherwise, you work hard and you do not see the payoff. If you want help with that directly, by the way, head over to Instagram right now at Bach Performance. Send me a message with the keyword synergy, and I will break this down a little bit further for you. Jumping into number 11, you cannot outwork a dysfunctional life. As much as you might want to try, you cannot deadlift your way out of burnout, junk food, and 5 hours of sleep. You probably could in your early 20s or mid 20s, but trying to do it now is just going to be a metabolic and hormonal disaster over time. I'm sorry. That's just the way that it's going to be. And so what we need to be able to focus on is, are we really establishing the core components of our health? Meaning, are we proactively reducing stress? Are we putting an emphasis on getting that 7 to 8 hours of sleep? If we can't get that 7 to 8 hours, are we focusing on getting the best quality sleep that we can? Right? Training is something that has to be a piece of the puzzle. It can't be the entire puzzle. This is the issue that so many guys run into, is they think they'll be able to continue to work hard and that's going to solve everything. It's not the case. It really isn't. And in fact, again, when that stress in other areas of our life is much higher, that's where issues can really compound. Number 12, data eliminates drama and directs decisions. So we are data focused with our coaching program. We look and see what's working based on recovery, based on scale numbers, based on pictures, based on hormone data, based on blood work, hormone data, blood work, same thing in this case, based on how their training is looking, based on macros, based on how much sleep that they're getting. We don't throw stuff at the wall and hope that something sticks, right? This is how I approach business. This is how I approach life. Not that I'm just a pure data analytics nerd, but when we can objectively have numbers, they give us a great idea of what's working and what is not. A lot of people will come in and say, hey, I think my hormones are out of whack. Have you had blood work? No. I feel like I'm eating the right amount, but I'm not losing weight. Have you tracked your calories? No. It feels like I'm doing everything right in the gym, but I'm not getting stronger. Are you following a consistent program and tracking your numbers? No. And the point is, most people don't track anything. And if you don't track anything, you cannot objectively look and see if it's working. You're quite literally blindfolded, throwing shit at the wall and hoping that it sticks. So you don't have to track everything, and you don't have to track everything forever. But what you should do is you should track whatever would be the biggest driver of progress for you that fixes your biggest problem, your biggest constraint, if you will. Review it. And then adjust your plan accordingly and continue tracking it. Our emotions will lie to us. Our metrics, they will be a lot more honest than what we are going to be with ourselves. We see this with everything from self-reported data when it comes to nutrition to what people estimate that they can actually do in the gym versus what they do when they actually go into the gym. So track something. You don't have to track everything, nor do you have to do it forever. For most people, what I would recommend is track your nutrition, everything that you eat for 30 days, every snack. You will quite literally learn more in that 30 days of tracking your nutrition than you would in most nutrition certifications that you can get, because you'll find out where your individual gaps are, where you're doing well, where you're struggling. And by extension of giving even a small bit of attention to that, you will start to proactively make better choices. And you will start to learn how to accurately gauge portions and make those improvements from there. Tip number 13, even pros hire coaches. I see this all the time, obviously, when it comes to coaching, when it comes to having worked with elite level athletes, but also in the business realm. I've seen it in relationships, right? I know so many 7, 8, even 9-figure folks who are incredibly wealthy and incredibly well versed in business, and they almost always have a business mentor or peeps or people that they relate to, that they connect with on a regular basis to learn from, to bounce ideas off of. Conversely, the people who I see struggling the most are often the ones trying to be the lone wolf. They are relying on ego. They think, hey, I can do it all by myself. When in reality, sometimes what we have to do is we have to take a step back and look, hey, if we had all the tools and all the skill sets and knowledge that we needed to get the result that we want, we would already have it. And every day that we do not have that goal that we've been working towards, it's costing us the benefit of that goal, right? And so when it comes to having mentors, when it has to coaches, it's something I have really at all times in business and fitness in these different areas of my life. And it's because even if we have knowledge, we all have blind spots, and we will continue to be blinded by them. Hence, they're called blind spots, and make the same problems until somebody else can bring awareness to them, until somebody else can challenge us, until somebody else can maybe reframe a problem that we're struggling with and help us see it in a different light. And then we can course correct that habit or behavior that might be holding us back. But the reality is, even the best people in the world have coaches. If you want to level up anything else in your life, you can spend time. That's your greatest resource, trying to figure it out in your own. Or you can hire an expert who does it consistently, who's done it for probably decades. And they can short circuit all of that for you, get you the result faster, and help you learn the keys to being able to keep it. Apply that everywhere in life, not just fitness. Number 14, busyness is not a badge of honor. So as a kid, I was the last kid to grow. I had I put a lot of value on myself being a hard worker, right? Midwestern, blue collar upbringing, be the hardest worker in the room. Don't miss workouts, right? Man, I'm a try hard. That's naturally how I am. That's a good thing. I'm glad I have that skill set. But just being busy and just working hard is not a badge of honor. The people who win in health and fitness and business and life, they know what to prioritize. And they know that in some cases, what you have to prioritize is pulling back on your busyness so you can be more structured, so you can have more strategy, so you can focus on the things that only you can do and on the things that really matter, right? I'll give you an example in business, right? I could do every single thing in my business if I needed to. I could edit all the videos. I could edit this podcast. I could set up every automation. I could set up everything with our CRM. I could train every single client. I could do all of those things. But you know what? If I do all of those things, I will not do the things that I can do that are unique to me best of all. And then that's what ends up hurting everybody else involved. And so there's no honor in trying to do everything by yourself, especially when it waters down your zone of genius. Do not wear your busyness as a badge of honor. Focus on what are the few things that you can do incredibly well and double down on what those are. And maybe consider getting rid of the rest. Number 15, muscle is the fountain of youth. Muscle is what keeps us lean, it keeps us strong, it keeps us athletic, and it helps us look younger. A lot of people blame hormone function for gaining weight later on in life. In reality, what happens is a lot of people stop exercising. They stop building lean muscle after 25, and it continues on. They do okay through 30, and then they hit their 40s, and they're like, what the hell happened? Now my hormones are shot, so on and so forth. Well, what happens for a lot of people is they gradually stop exercising. They are losing lean muscle, gaining a little bit of body fat, even if their weight stays flat. And all of a sudden, over the course of time, now they're up 10, 15 pounds, but they're down 10 to 15 pounds of lean muscle. And so it's not that their metabolism just changed because of their age. It changed because they stopped training in a way that was going to preserve and or build that lean muscle tissue, right? And so if you want to be able to age well, you need to train like it matters. Muscle is your metabolic engine. Muscle is your metabolic buffer. The more lean muscle we have, the more flexibility we will typically have to eat some of those favorite foods and enjoy those experiences and not have it lead to a cascade of fat gain around your gut every time you look at a damn pizza, right? So we have to treat muscle as that priority. Muscle is your fountain of youth. Build it. It will pay off. And finally, number 16, ruthless execution of the basics is what wins. So many people know what to do. The gap is very rarely knowledge, at least from a foundational level. It's execution. It's doing the things that are unsexy, that we need to be doing daily, that we need to do even when we don't want them. That really determines who is successful and then who is not. Yes, knowledge can help. However, more knowledge in the absence of execution is simply going to pull you further and further away from your goals. So remember, success comes down to the ruthless execution of the basics. And now, these have not been all gym tips. Hopefully, you've been able to glean some wisdom that you can apply in different areas of your life. Not to be a philosopher here, but it's something I've realized in my life that fitness has had such a transcendent impact on my health, my wealth, my relationships, everything else, just the way that I view everything, right? And so if you got value from this episode, do me a favor, please share this episode with somebody who you think would find it valuable. Share it over on IG. And if you want more strategies and tips like this, simply send me a message over on Instagram with the keyword muscle. That's at Bach Performance. Send me the keyword muscle, and I will send you my top muscle building tips that you can apply directly to your life so you can look great naked without living in the gym. I will catch you on the next one. Thank you for joining.